on YouTube, as always, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. GMT. We are back live from Paris. So thank you so much for joining us. We're going to get into the show as normal in just a moment. Legendary, how are you doing? You have just arrived in Paris. We are staying in the same hotel. What are your thoughts? How are you feeling? What's up?
I had a pleasant journey. My room is not ready yet, so I had to book a ridiculously large co-working space that probably can fit around 25 people for myself and one other person who is at the other end of it. Um, I think it's a bit weird that I can't hear the other speakers, but I will try to cope. Oh, Jack is saying we have nothing coming through right now.
Oh, but we were working just a second ago. This is a
Wait,
disaster.
I think you do.
Can you? Oh, I see. Okay, so you can't hear Legendary, but you can hear me. Right. Legendary, that will be because you maybe come off mute on the Modern Market Twitter account as a guess. That might sound really obvious and dumb to people, but it's actually not, because sometimes one of us always has to stay on mute with the way that audio works. So Legendary, do you want to try that? No. Do you want to? What's the little test you're doing? I'm not sure what. Okay, he's going to do a little test. What I'm going to do in the meantime is give you the headlines from the last 24 hours. And hopefully, given that we can hear some of our other routine guests, we're going to be able to get into a discussion with you guys on some of the headlines, which we will share in just a moment. So, starting with some price action, we have Bitcoin up a bit more than 1%. We've got ETH up almost 4%, again knocking on the door of $3,000. Got Solana up 3% as well at about 106. We have some interesting price action on NFTs. We've got where were we? We've got Bored Apes up almost 6% to 23 ETH. We've got Mutants up almost 8% to 4.2. We're going to get into all of the reasons why the Yuga ecosystem has responded quite positively, and some of the negative sentiment that's come out around it in the last 24 hours. Some other stuff, got Lil Pudgy's down 6%, Creeps down 6% as well. Seems like people reacting a little bit to the move up in price of ETH. And in terms of the headlines, we have, gosh, this is just the worst doing this online for the first time in a while. What are the headlines? I can't even find the headlines right now. This is just the worst. Thanks, Tiro. That is exactly correct. That's given me the impetus I need to find the headlines. We've got Garga returning as the CEO of Yuga Labs to widespread excitement. Tiro is very, very excited. We are too. Crypto Garga said, "I'm stepping back in as CEO of Yuga Labs. Wiley and I are grateful for all the contributions on operational rigor Daniel has brought to the company and appreciate his thoughtfulness and mentorship over the past year." Pio had a really great take, which made me laugh out loud. He said, "Crypto is the only industry where you can kick out a 15-year executive from Google and Activision that has an MBA from Harvard and replace him with a short, bald guy with glasses named Gargamel." And everyone responds to that as very, very bullish, like absolutely hilarious. But also the price action suggests people are genuinely bullish at this move. Want to discuss some of the mechanics of that in just a little bit. Node Monkeys send to 0.23 BTC. I think they've gone up further now to 0.25 with 166 sales in the last day. Market cap is now 120 million. Content Cat's market cap is 39 million. OMB market cap is 85. Bitcoin Frog's market cap is 82 million. I did that analysis this morning because I thought it was important for people to realize that the market cap of Node Monks is way higher than the other collections, and people are purely focused on the Bitcoin price for a lot of these collections. But forget that node monks have a significantly higher collection size, and therefore the market cap is much, much higher than those others. And finally, in terms of the headlines, we've got Yuga announcing the next journey into the other side, although it's not really the other side anymore, a pivot away from a AAA game towards UGC content. They said, we're not making a competitive MMO that takes many years, many tens of millions of dollars, and has enormous risks. People want to connect, share, flex, and have fun as a community. So we are going deep in evolving a social platform to enable our communities to have new ways to engage with each other. Huge change in direction there. And we want to discuss some of that in just a moment. In terms of some notable sales, we've got the Node Monkey Alien selling for 2.12 BTC. That's $108,000. And a Kampai Panda robot, one of one, selling for 65 ETH. Kampai Panda is going a little bit under the radar in general, but they are doing very, very well, performing very strongly over and over again, to be honest. So shout out to the Kampai Pandas. And that is your quick little roundup. That's your headline. Those are the bits of price action I want to pick out for you today. Legendary, let's check in with you. Anything catching your eye before we get into the main headlines? Let's see, do we have a working connection now? So you're on mute on StreamYard at the moment now. So I cannot hear you. Oh, well, that's terrible because I can't hear him now.
Wait, does this work? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, this is the weirdest setup. Wait, we have to stop for a moment before I answer your question. So what I've done is I am with my AirPods connected to StreamYard so that you can hear me B-check because you're joining on desktop because your mobile phone is rugging. But if I do that, then nobody else can hear me. So I'm also unmuted on my phone and I talk with these like headsets that I can't plug in because if I plug them in, then I can't hear anything. So I have to hold them like that and hold the mic to my mouth and talk into two microphones at the same time so that everybody can hear me. But hey, it works. So I'm glad. It took us like 14 minutes to get to that point, but we did solve the riddle.
We solved the riddle. Just a thumbs up from everyone. The riddle has been solved. We're happy with solving the riddle. In fact, we're actually happy that there was a riddle, right? Because that's what we do it for. If we didn't get to solve the riddle, we would have had a worse day today. It would have been average. It would have been a better show probably, but that's not actually always what we're optimizing for. We've solved the riddle, and so we can feel like we've had a sense of achievement for the day. Thank God. Okay, we have done the headlines. Thanks so much for bearing with us, guys. We obviously normally run far smoother, but we are live in Paris. Maybe just a quick thing on that, Legendary. Looking forward to Paris, and then we're going to get into the headlines.
Right now, it takes me a bit more time because I need to unmute me in two places before I can give an answer. Yeah, absolutely. The thing I'm looking forward to most, honestly, is getting my room. Should be free like a bit after the show, and then getting some lunch with you. Tonight's going to be fun. We're going to a dinner with, I think, a lot of content creators that Shiv has put together. So definitely looking forward to that. But for now, I'm just happy that the show is up and running.
There we go. Love to see it. Love to hear it. Let's get into some of the headlines then, Legendary, because we have been saying a lot of Yuga stuff, interestingly. So I think let's go in that direction first. I'll maybe set it up for people to just get a little bit of context, and then definitely want to hear your thoughts, all kinds of reactions to this on the timeline. Obviously, Gargamel was previously one of the leaders at Yuga Labs. They had stepped aside to let Daniel Allegre come in. Very, very accomplished person, big history at Activision, big history at Google, like very, very accomplished leader with more corporate experience. And they have ultimately decided at this point in time that they want to move away from that direction and go back to their roots in some respect, reinstalling the previous founder as CEO. Top level thoughts from this, Legendary, and I'm sure lots of people on the stage will have thoughts on this too. Would love to hear them. What's your take here?
I'm torn on that news. I mean, on the one hand, I do think it takes a special kind of masochist to return to a job in Web3, especially if you're Garga and you've absolutely made it. And obviously has a lot of love and passion for the company because otherwise he wouldn't step back. I mean, I know that the market liked the reaction. If you look at it from the perspective of the floor price of apes and newtons, which definitely did move up, I find it like quite disappointing from the way they're trying to repurpose Otherside. That kind of is going away from wanting to be a AAA game to being more keen to Roblox, more keen like to metaverse lobby hangout kind of thing. So that is something that if you think about the amount of value that has went into Otherside, 100 millions that have been burned in gas, 500 million that they sold for, the trades, the amount of ETH that has been spent on hunting down specific trades in there. And now if you kind of Roblox size that concept, it probably won't leave a lot of room for all of those trades and values that have been paid for. And this is like the kind of the pivot. Like as much as they love, Garga coming back, and you have kind of the corporate CEO leaving, some people are even like going as far as speculating, was it Daniel's idea to go for the Moonbirds, for the proof deal from like a very corporate perspective, and kind of neglecting the Web3 vibe part of that, which I don't really think it's true, because you would have spoken to like
Yeah.
the core team about that for sure. At least that's my opinion. It's obviously only me speculating on that, could be completely wrong. So I'm torn, to sum it up. On the one hand, I love Garga coming back, all the love and all the respect for him. On the other hand, I really dislike the plans that they are like putting forward for Otherside. And I just think that's like a tremendous disappointment from the way it has been announced.
Fair enough. I've got it one, like, I kind of want to split the discussion a little bit, because I think there's a big discussion to have about Otherside and the change in direction there. But I thought it was I wanted to speak a little bit just from a leadership perspective for a moment, because I had a conversation with Jarvis, head of product and operations at Cool Cats, yesterday on my show with Chimpers, and that runs every Wednesday. We had a really interesting chat for an hour, and we touched on that little period of time where Cool Cats as well. At one point in time, the CEO Klon, the kind of key person who dealt with the artistic direction of the project, he kind of stepped aside and then reclaimed that position as well. I think this has happened multiple times now with different projects who think at some point in time that it would be better to have a more corporate leader with a bit more experience in charge, and then have subsequently realized at some point in time, like, oh, hang on a second, this isn't working for whatever reason. We need to get back into it. But I saw a funny tweet by Spencer, which suggested, which I found very, very funny, which was like, in the it, I need to find the tweet, but it basically alluded to the idea that when the floor price is going down, or maybe this was my interpretation of it, and is this a fair interpretation? When the floor price is going down in a bear market, the Web3 founders were unable to deal with that, and so they thought, well, let's get someone else in to deal with this. And now, when the floor price is going back up, or the market seems to be getting better, they're like, hang on a second, maybe we should be back in. Like, that's not exactly Spencer's tweet, but Spencer's tweet made me think that. I'm going to find his tweet properly in a second. But that was my original thought. Legendary, would like to hear your thoughts on that. Like, is it the case that when the shit hit the fan, when things were really, really bad and the floor price was going down and people couldn't explain it, they're like, hang on a second, maybe we need someone else to take this heat. Maybe we need someone more professional to steer the ship. But now that things are better, right, we're actually just going to come in, swoop in, and the market's way better now, and maybe that will be able to push things. Like, that's just like one thought I had. I'm not saying that's definitively true. Would love to hear your kind of perspective on that.
My take on that might be a bit different. I think that it's comes down to the difference between, like founding a company and then scaling it up. And Yuga Labs has obviously been scaling up massively. They've hired so many people. And I think that operational side of things wasn't just a field of, wasn't just something where like the original team had experience in scaling a company that quickly and in keeping the ops working. And this is why they kind of wanted to go for the corporate CEO. And now, well, obviously arrived at an all-time low in terms of sentiment, if you wanted to put it like that, and kind of saw the need for a change. To me, something that I wasn't able to, find out, but I probably just missed it because I've been like getting ready for Paris, traveling, everything, is what position Daniel will maintain, if any. Like, will he move into a more operational role, to more like COO kind of role, or what is like basically happening with him? Because this is something that I would see to be a good fit. You have Garga as like the face, the CEO, the one who absolutely understands Web3 culture, but you also need someone to run the ops of what is a very, very large company for Web3 standards at least. But that's just a point of information that I'm lacking.
Yeah, to be fair, I wondered the same thing, but I don't know that someone as accomplished as Daniel would like necessarily want to like just step aside into like a different role. I think he joined to be CEO and to run the ship. You know, purely my instinct would be that it seems like he's moving on from even the comms that have come out. That would be my instinct, although I'd be happy to be told differently. This was the tweet that I was alluding to, sharing it on the screen for people watching, and I'll read it out for the people who are listening in the bear market, you hire the MBAs because you don't know why the price is going down. In the bull market, you fire the MBAs because they don't know why the price is going up. Legendary, what are your thoughts and reactions to that idea?
Yeah, it's a funny post, but I just don't agree with it at all.
Why not?
Because I just don't think that this is what we've seen happening. Like, we've seen founders step out and step in, but I just don't think that the correlation is with price. I think sometimes you maybe need a bit of distance from your own company. You need to figure out how someone else would run it. You maybe need to think about a new direction, a pivot, and you can't do that at the same time while you're running that company. And I don't think the equation is that simple. Price goes down, I step back. Price goes up, I'm back in. That's a too simplistic worldview.
Yeah, I think that's kind of fair. I think it's actually something which made me laugh, without necessarily being something which is definitively true. Um, but it did start to make me think about the timings of when people drop out and drop back in, and I do think certain people dropped out like at some of the hardest times. But then to be fair to Klon on the Cool Cat side, I think he jumped back in like pretty early, maybe possibly before there was any indication that we are like going to be in another bull or that things were getting significantly better. So I think I agree with you, which is yes, people in the darkest of times, people felt that there was a requirement to change some leadership or to try something else at least, to bring in some fresh ideas, to try some new strategies. But I don't necessarily think that that means that people were like bailing on the project and only wanting to get back in when the time was good. Because I think ultimately some of the people did join back in just at an equally or similarly difficult time, but just not. So yeah, I don't think it was like opportunistic in that respect to come and take the glory when times were good. So interesting stuff there from a kind of leadership perspective. What did you think, Legendary, in terms of the price action and the community reaction to that? And just as a point to note, I'm not sure if other people are raising their hands because I'm on desktop. I can't see that. Legendary, if you do see people raising their hands wanting to contribute, because I suspect people will want to on these
Oh
topics.
shit, you don't see any hands at all.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't see.
let me before I give my take, let me handle the hands. We have Jack Funky and Tiro with the hands up. I don't know who was first, so I see that Tiro just came off mute, being very brave there. So I'm just gonna give the mic to him.
Let's
Tiro,
do it.
welcome to the stage. What are your thoughts on Garga stepping back in? What are your thoughts on the community's reaction?
Mm. You're on first name terms now, Tiro. That's fine. You're on first name terms. Mm. Yeah, I mean, it's very it's a challenging situation. The I think people have tried to, for quite some time, detach the floor price from the rest of the stuff. Like I don't think people want to rely on the floor price too much as like this constant thing to beat people over the head with, and like a metric for the business's success. Although I do take your points, and like there's definitely something in spirit that had, I think, been lost in the community, and that was shown actually when Wiley or Gordon Gunner came back every single time. Like there's just this outpouring of enjoyment and happiness, and like people really enjoying it. So I think that's definitely true, and I think they had spread themselves too thin. And I actually think, to be fair to Daniel, he did have to try to come in and maybe cut some costs, maybe reorganize the focus and think about things from that perspective. So, on some level, I actually empathize on the sense that, like, I feel like he kind of had to come in and do some of the dirty work because he had to like be the bad guy and say like, no, we're actually going to cut some costs here. We're going to have to reorganize these things. We're going to have to maybe trim down some of these the focus here. So I do empathize from that perspective. Um, Good takes though. Legendary. I'm going to come back to you for a second. I want you to maybe give your thoughts on what we've just discussed. I need to deal with something technical from my side for a moment, so you're going to have to go for a couple of minutes. Um, just letting you know. I think I've fairly summarized what was going on there, and then maybe you could give some thoughts on the price action as a consequence as well.
Wonderful. Very happy to do that. The fun part about it is that while I can see who has their hands up, I can hear what they are saying. So I can read along with the captions, which have a wonderful leg to them, but at least I am able to follow the conversation. I think from the price action, yes, we're trying to go away from the price action, but that doesn't necessarily work in that way. In my opinion, we've seen it with pudgies. Like pudgies have been building for such a long time, but the like true enjoyment on the overall timeline and outside of the pudgies community was once the price action also started to rip. Once we got closer to the flappening, we had the flappening happening twice, I think, for 2 short periods of time. So as much as we try to disconnect from the price action, that's something that doesn't realistically work because it's something that holders always will look at, especially long-term holders who have seen different times and prices. On another note, I quite liked one post by Beanie that basically was also written about Daniel Allegri leaving the company. And Beanie said, "I'm sure Allegri is relieved to be out of this mess. Can you imagine going from a comfortable corporate life to being attacked all day online by a bunch of psychos?" So that's actually a very fair point, because we had the question, will he stay within the company or not? And I think his Web3 experience, as much as he might have enjoyed that, also did show him that at times we can be a bunch of psychos. So I do think that's that's a fair point to add if you think about whether he will remain in the company or not.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. Like, as in, I, I don't know. I would love to give credit to other people coming in for being really curious and really, taking a risk. Like, fair play to the guy to leave like those really accomplished positions at very steady, high paying, quality organizations to take a risk and dive into like one of these things where people are building on the frontier of tech. Like, definitely, you know, respect to the guy for trying to do that. Um, I don't know. I wonder whether people, maybe it's because we're in it so much all the time now that we've become accustomed to it. Like, I actually don't think people, maybe we're just used to people, how crazy people are, but yeah, to the outside, it's completely absurd. I think that's probably what's happened because I've just got used to it. In the same way, Legendary, remember when I was talking the other day about how I've tweeted about this, like when I go to corporate events now where I'm either speaking or I'm just mingling with people, having a chat about what I do. Even the very fact that I'm on X, on Twitter, can, like, I see people who are visibly uh, taken aback by the fact that I would spend so much time on Twitter because it is so toxic, because it is so dangerous, because it is so um, wild. Frankly, like, yeah, okay, you're going to see some opinions that you don't agree with, but this is just the space that we operate in, and I've just become very, very comfortable with seeing some pretty wild stuff. And I mean, frankly, I don't even see it as that wild. It's just people expressing their opinion. You can't hurt me with your opinion, no matter how vile it is, frankly. But that's just the position I've been able to take in order to be able to be on this app like 12, 14 hours a day sometimes. So that's just some kind of reflections on operating in this space from my perspective. But I know there are a couple more hands on this. So I think, Jack, let's go to you next. Would love to hear your thoughts on this, my friend. Welcome to the stage. What are your thoughts? Damn, I can't hear you, Jack. Oh man, I can't hear you, Jack. Legendary, can you hear Jack? No, neither of us can hear you. Let's this is the worst. Funky, we could hear other people a second ago. Funky, can you come off mute and see if we can hear you? God damn it. We cannot hear. This is the worst because we could literally hear you when you came off mute earlier.
Well, you could hear him, but you now changed your setup somehow, and
I
now
just
you can't hear him.
no, all I did was I put a charger in. I started
That
charging
did
the
that
laptop.
did the trick. That did the trick.
Okay, look, this show is going to be a, well, what's the two-person version of a monologue? A dialogue. That's embarrassing. This show is going to be a dialogue for the rest of the show. Apologies, guys. We know we love you. We want to come to you and get all of your thoughts. If you have anything wild to say, the comments will be there. But we're going to have to get back to you on days when we're not having these technical issues. So me and Legendary will just continue it on. Hopefully, as always, you find some of it insightful and worth listening to. Legendary, we said we were going to split this Yuga conversation into two. We've kind of dealt with the leadership aspect because I thought that was an interesting way to look at it. I also want to deal with the other side aspect as well, because the other side is obviously been one of the flagship proposals that the apes have been moving forward with. They said that there's going to be, and I'm quoting here from, I believe I took this from the website. They said that we're not making a competitive MMO now. That takes many years, many tens of millions of dollars, and has enormous risks. there are AAA gaming companies that have their thousands of employees working on these and other projects, and that red ocean is not one that we want to swim in. I guess my first take on this news that Yuga Labs seem to be pivoting away from this kind of AAA game experience is that I thought that's what they had their funding for. Like that seemed to be the MO, the mission, the objective of Otherside, which was to create this AAA amazing experience where people would go and really have amazing gaming experiences together. It seems like they're trying to kind of walk away from that in favor of something which is a little bit more low key, a little bit more social, a little bit more fun. What's your immediate take on this kind of pivot?
I think that a lot of people had exactly that same expectation, right? Like I was in that camp of saying it takes years and years and years to build a AAA game. It takes a nine-figure budget to do that, and if anyone can execute it, it is this team who has that amount of money, who has hired so many people who can work on that. And now seeing that pivot kind of makes me wonder, A, how much of the learnings that you made in trying to build Otherside up to this point before you pivoted can you even transfer? And B, are you aware of the competition that is out there not even in Web3, again, going back to Roblox, being way more experienced and way better at this game, which is also extremely competitive. Like I would argue that in this time and age, companies like Roblox are way more relevant than competitive MMOs like your World of Warcraft or whatever, who has just lost the glory that it once had. So you're moving into territory that is, in my opinion, even more competitive than the one that you basically just left. So you're not creating a situation that is easier. And then if you even break it down on a Web3 native level, you have obviously one big winner of this whole discussion, which in my opinion is Nifty Island, who have been exactly building the product that Yuga Labs with Otherside is now trying to pivot to, and who don't have a $1 billion backing, but just have a working version of a social game live. So I don't know. I don't think that they are making their job easier by pivoting in this way and fashion.
Interesting thoughts. What did you think of the Nifty Island founders' comments? I think if people haven't seen those, again, it made me chuckle a little bit. Do you have that tweet, Legendary?
Give me 1 sec to find that one again. Where was it? Charles posted, keeping things clear, we at Yuga Labs are going to pivot to building Nifty Island now, and quote posting the announcement by Yuga Labs.
What did you think of that?
I mean, he must be super happy, right? Because he's getting a lot of extra attention, a lot of people in the comments of so many popular, key opinion leaders who are like voicing their opinion. And Yuga Labs are saying, hey, essentially Nifty Island is building that, and they are live with it. And the airdrop is probably going to be even bigger than expected because it is fun. And now having that extra attention directed to them during the time that they have an airdrop campaign running, and we know how much we all love airdrops and how much extra attention that gives you in the space, for him is like a wonderful position to be in right now.
Do you think, okay, this is an interesting comment from Bray on YouTube. I mean, it's kind of taking the conversation into a slightly different direction, but I'll bring it back to what we're talking about. So, guys, Pudgy World has a year's, unsurprisingly, Pudgy Holder. Shout out to Bray as a Pudgy Penguin. Guys, Pudgy World has a year's head start on this. Already partnered with Roblox, where Pudgy World will have a map in their game, as well as this isn't Penguin's main utility. So the point being, I guess the question that I had after reading that is, if Yuga's pivoting in this direction, like, are they now behind other people? Like, after having years and multi-millions to pursue this kind of grand vision of the other side, which, to be fair, I actually think was, look, I know people weren't happy with the cadence. They wanted more and quicker and faster. But from my understanding, people liked the Otherside trips. Like they were good, people enjoyed it, people had a lot of fun when they did come around. So like I think they were good, and they're obviously taking years and a lot of money to get there. But after all those years and a lot of money, are we now in a position where we're saying, oh, well, now Yuga Labs are actually behind Nifty Island. They're actually behind Pudgy World. They're actually behind these other people who had slightly smaller visions, but are finding product market fit with a lot of people having a lot of fun playing and participating in those universes. Like, is Yuga Labs behind the ball now?
Yeah, I mean, that was the point that I was alluding to with the pivot. They are making it so much more difficult for them. Pudgy, the comment on Pudgy World is a wonderful one. In the moment that you read it out, my head immediately also went to ZTX. You have ZTX with, oh shit, I forgot to unmute myself on the second device, so I have to start again. Fucking hell, this space is gonna kill me. Anyhow, so I was saying,
Wait,
wonderful point.
Tiro, can you hear me? You just said you couldn't hear me, or you couldn't hear Legendary?
Yeah, he can hear you. He said he can hear you. I could read it in the captions.
Okay.
Tiro said he can hear you. So yeah, I was saying, wonderful point raised by Bray, and exactly what I was alluding to. Yuga Labs' Otherside is falling behind the competition with that. You not only have the Pudgy World, you also have ZTX with Zepeto, fourth or fifth largest metaverse, right? And
Yeah.
they are moving into Web3 with ZTX. They have what, 40 million monthly active users, daily active users, something around that number. Don't quote me on that.
Sure.
But they are one of the largest companies who are moving in there. You have, exactly as you said, the partnership between Pudgy World and Roblox. So they are moving into a very, very competitive area and have time lost that they now need to catch up to.
Very interesting stuff. It does feel like there's been a little bit of a shift in who is leading. Like, as you say, these people who are partnering with other people and producing either casual games or hyper casual games at a bit of a quicker rate, that does seem to be the way to sort out your distribution. And I don't know what Yuga Labs has done in terms of distribution. This is one of the questions I was asking Jarvis yesterday from Cool Cats. Because I was like, how do those deals actually work? Like, what is the dynamic? Who's making the money? Who takes what cut? Like, obviously, Cool Cats is primarily an IP brand. Like, someone created that art, people love the art, but they don't know how to make games internally, right? So how he explained it works is they've actually partnered with Play Ember, who, if people don't know, have recently entered the space, but they are known to be very, very proficient, very, very good at what they do in the world of gaming, specifically like casual gaming, hyper casual gaming. So they've partnered with them. And the way that it works is that they will say, okay, we're going to partner with you for you to make the game. You're actually going to make more on it than we will. So it's like a pure licensing deal. You'll take our art, you'll take our IP, you'll create the interesting worlds with it, you will create the game mechanics for it, and you're actually going to be incentivized more than us, in the sense that you get a better share of the deal for doing all of that work. And then we all win because we get the game out there and those people are proficient in terms of the distribution of the game, where they know the networks of how they need to push that product in order for it to get played by people. But I'm not 100% sure. Oh, I'm getting another message saying some people can't hear us on YouTube. I don't know. Can people hear us on Twitter right now? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Anyone want to come off mute and tell us?
People are sending thumbs up. I don't think you can see that, but Aaron's sending a thumbs up.
Okay.
Wait, for the first time, I think I could hear Matthew. Wow, something happened on the other headphone. I think I could hear Matthew.
Yeah, we can hear you now again. God knows what's going on today, guys. Apologies for the technical issues. Legendary, what do you think about this idea of other people kind of dealing with the issue of distribution, making sure the games are getting played by signing these types of deals? I'm not sure that Yuga Labs have done anything like that, because I think what they wanted to do is take all the money and like build all that stuff internally. Do you think that will be the reasonable outcome for them, having to take that route, or do you think they've got all these people, they're going to have to put them to work still again, and figure out the distribution as well internally?
I mean, Oxy in the YouTube comments raised a wonderful point on that, saying, wasn't that what Otherside was supposed to be for Cool Cats? Remember the trailer that had a bunch of different NFT
Yes.
projects included in it? So that was kind of the original intention behind it. I think we are seeing that like collaborative model more often, especially around Play Ember. They do think to like this kind of setup. We also had Julio, Pixelmon CEO, on our show, where he was talking about the cooperation between Play Ember and Pixelmon, as in Pixelmon giving their IP and giving their trust to Play Ember and have them building a game on their behalf. And also made the key point around that in this case you have to trust them and you have to purely know the things where that company is better than you are at your stuff, and you have to let them run with it and build it. And basically this has to be a finished product where you just cannot like pivot in the middle of it. So I do think there's like a lot of merit and space for that collaborative approach. But I very much like the remark by Oxy saying that this was Otherside's original intention.
Yeah, very good points there. What we want to do in the final 10 minutes is give you the Web3 roundup from the snapshot to get you up to speed with what else has been happening in the space in the past 24 hours. Got some other interesting updates. And then we're going to get into a little bit of Ordinals news to talk a little bit about node monkeys and market caps, because I did a little bit of research this morning and found some interesting stuff. So let's get into it from the snapshot. Which is pinned up top. First, DGod CEO Frank announces internal changes and merge of D Labs and Dust Labs. He announced all kinds of changes. He said that there was a multi-month process of fixing the company from the inside. They merged D Labs and Dust Labs into a single company, decided to part ways with Kevin. Our team is currently 13 people full-time with 2 years of runway, and he is now CEO of the merged company. So lots of details coming out of DGods there. Next, Portal Coin TG has been announced as being on February the 29th. So that's 1 week away. OTC trades now trading towards $2. I believe it's gone higher than that most recently. Interesting collection coming out on Bitcoin. These Nat Cats reach 0.021 Bitcoin, a 3x in 24 hours. If you are interested, they're like a very interesting an interesting collection that you had to claim in a very interesting way. The details are in the snapshot pinned up top if you are interested further. Next, Coinbase responds to the SEC on Grayscale's Ether Trust, explaining why ETH is not a security. I think that conversation that Coinbase is having with the authorities is very important for the space in general. And so we do want to keep covering that as and when it's necessary. And finally, Terra founder Do Kwon is going to be extradited to the United States. And finally, the Hungry Bearer Mint minted out at 0.06 and 0.12 ETH respectively. Part of that was pre-sale. Part of that was like a public mint price on Arbitrum, as Ramen Finance readies for the Bearer Chain launch. If people aren't aware of what's going on Bearer Chain, a quick point on that. There seems to be like a really rabid community on Bearer Chain, and it's one of the things which I think people are farming quite aggressively because they think that there's going to be some type of very lucrative drop for the people who are participating in the testnet at the moment. I haven't personally got involved. Well, I minted one of these bears, but I've wanted to get involved for ages. I saw this bear, I was like, all right, I'm going to buy a bear. Don't know anything about it much more than that, but I know that this Bearer Chain thing, like something cool is going on there. Definitely want to try to find some time to dive in more. Legendary, that was the Web3 roundup. Any points from you on Bearer Chain? Have you looked into it that much? I know that you are incredible at getting on top of all the different airdrop opportunities and exploring different protocols. Is this one that you've had a chance to look at yet, or not quite?
I didn't have a chance to look at it, and I also was farming it a bit, but I also think that it probably might be one of the most overfarmed things or L2s at the moment, which is not to say that it's not worth doing it, but just keep in mind that there's a lot of people doing the very, very same thing. I don't know, by the way, if we still can now hear other people, but Sammy has his hand up again, or not again.
Sammy, you want to go for it? Just go for it, mate. Nope. Sorry, ma'am.
No, I can hear him. I can hear him. Let him speak. I can hear him. It's fine. Yeah, those are all very, very good points, and I didn't have that in mind. But you're perfectly right. It is a test net, so even if there's more than 1 million users on it, it's not a number that most likely will transfer to the mainnet, and the mainnet typically accounts more for whatever the airdrop will be. BJ, shall we move on to the ordinals news for the last 5 minutes?
Absolutely. Let's do the ordinals news because I think this is pretty significant. I just think there's been a consolidation period around ordinals for some time. And I've actually thought they've been undervalued for a little bit. I had been wanting to try to get another node monkey at some point in time. Like I'd wanted to do it fairly recently, but it seems like I'm not going to get a chance because they completely ripped yesterday. They went to 0.23. They're almost up to 0.25 Bitcoin now, with more than 166 sales in the last hour, last 24 hours. Sorry, that was when I wrote the snapshot this morning. And the key point I want to make on ordinals, and this might be an obvious point, but the thing is, I see so many people not talking about it in this way that it feels important to just bring to the front. Is that the market cap of Node Monkeys is above $120 million now, and just to illustrate the gap between that and the other collections, Quantum Cat's market cap is at $40 million. Like, yes, the Quantum Cats might be trading at 0.21 Bitcoin, but the market cap is $80 million less. OMB market cap is at 85 million. Okay, so that's significantly higher, still 35 million off Node Monks. And Bitcoin Frogs is at 82 million as well. So I think actually the one that I left out was the Bitcoin Puppets, which I think a lot of people in the timeline really love. They've got a pretty healthy market cap as well. And actually it's pretty close. I didn't include it in my tweet this morning, but it's pretty close to Quantum Cats. And again, people might not think that because I think the puppets are at like 0.06 or something like that. But you know, the cats have so few that they can trade at 0.2, and everyone's thinking that okay, well that's a really, really great thing. It's really expensive. But actually the supply on the puppets is much higher. So I just wanted to bring the market cap conversation in because I think we just always not talking about market cap. And it's pretty wild given that the way that we trade these assets is increasingly like pre-sales, especially when NFTs are becoming a lot like pre-sales now, where people are buying in with the expectation of a token coming later. To be fixated on the floor price, you are completely shooting yourself in the face if you're not thinking about market cap, because ultimately the price of the thing doesn't matter if it's to do with some token allocation that's coming down the line. It's all about percentages. It's all about the proportion. It's all about market cap. Like, what is your share of the total percentage allocation? that's how people should be thinking about it if you are obsessed with getting yourself an allocation later. But even if you're not doing that, it's clearly a more helpful metric to determine the value, to assess the value of a collection by looking at it in its totality rather than the individual thing, because of the supply issue. You have to know how many there are in a particular collection. So that's a little rant from me on market cap, because I just don't think we're talking about it enough. And I know I'm using it way more than other people. And I know that other people know that it's important, but it's just not really as much part of the conversation. Wanted to point out this bigger gap that Node Monkeys is kind of creating with the other collections now. Legendary, 2 reflections on that for you before we close out today. The first reflection is, what do you think about my reflection on market cap? And second question on the collection of Node Monkeys, I know you're not as close to ordinals, but do you see any significance in this gap opening up?
So first reflection on the market cap. I think to some extent it makes sense to look at it, but more from a relative perspective, exactly as you did it. So as you did by looking at the market cap of a collection and then putting that in perspective to others and see the gap between that and see how it is widening. I also think what is really interesting is that you now see like a DeFi ecosystem and more things emerging on Bitcoin. And as you can see with Solana and the Madlets, who are definitely the collection that benefits the most of all the airdrops that are coming out there, I do think that you will see a similar picture where the number one collection on BTC, the number one ordinals collection, will be the one to reap a lot of benefits from potential future airdrops. In a world where this airdrop meta is continuing. Also had to laugh in between because you pinned a YouTube comment by Oxy saying, how many Node Monkeys did Legendary find in his lost wallet this morning? Unfortunately, no Node Monkey was found in any of my wallets because I don't have that many ordinal wallets. I only have one, and there's no Node Monkey in it.
Got to get some more ordinal wallets, my man. I'm definitely thinking a lot about ordinals at the moment. Also thinking about Bitcoin infrastructure. I think there is a clear narrative for L2s on Bitcoin. I've been messing around with lending ordinals on Liquidium, which is a cool Bitcoin protocol for NFT lending or ordinal lending. I think all of these kind of consumer apps will slowly come to Bitcoin, and I think there's this demand for just getting things moving a bit more on Bitcoin and speed running some of the things we've seen that happen on other chains, just trying to build those same things out on Bitcoin. So those are a couple of things that are on my radar as we move forward. But guys, we have run out of time for today's show. We do sincerely apologize for the technical issues. We are live in Paris from allegedly a good hotel. I'm not so sure anymore. I told Legendary before the show that I trust his choice of restaurants. Not so sure now. Not so sure after this hotel choice, Legendary. Final reflections from you, my man. And then we're going to go and get lunch at a restaurant of your choice.
I was just posting in the Discord. I hope that you don't wrap with your typical saying that this was a fantastic show. I just hope that you would go for a different ending and not default to that.
Yeah. As you say, guys, apologies for the technical issues. We will do our best to make it better tomorrow. In fact, I don't know if we'll be on video tomorrow because we're going to be doing something. We're just going to have to do it slightly differently. But we hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you so much for joining. As always, thank you so much to our attempted speakers today, Matthew, Jack, Oxy, Funky, and anyone else who's been up on stage with us. We hope you have a wonderful day, and we will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.